Good evening, everybody. My name is Christina Wigren, and I am with Stilly Valley Health Connections. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's class that is focused on what to expect from each month of your baby's first year. For everyone who is joining us live this evening, please note that we are set up in a Zoom webinar format. This means that all of the participants are muted and your videos are turned off so that we can record this presentation. If you would like to leave any questions or comments, we encourage you to do that by using the chat box, or there's also a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, which I will note is anonymous. Now I will pass it over to Dr. Carly Berg and Dr. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Lizette Antig, who will be presenting on this evening's topic. Thank you so much to both of you for being here, and thank you to those of you who have joined us live this evening. We hope that you learned a lot. Right, and now I am going to turn off my screen and pass it over.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lizette Antig. I'm a pediatrician in SRH, Skagit Regional Health, and I have here with me Dr. Carly Berg. And tonight we will be talking about how to take care of our babies from newborn to 1 year of age. This is a guide for parents and our caregivers. The course today will go over like what to expect in the first year, the growth and development, like milestones that we are expecting for our babies to 1 year of age, how the feeding and sleep pattern looks like over newborn to 1 year, and then the schedule for well child checks and vaccines and practical parenting tips. So let's dive into the newborn period. But first, I'd like to highlight very important message that we gotta like make sure as well that the wellness of our parents is being attended to, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So that's what they say. So your wellness is very important. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself so you can take care of your little one. So prioritize your sleep when possible. Sleep when baby sleeps is a real advice. So your rest is very essential for healing mood and the energy that caregiving demands as well. Like make sure that you are like mindful about your emotions. If you're developing like postpartum depression, definitely reach out to get some help. And as well, like stay connected with others, accept help from others, and practice self-compassion. Remember that there is no perfect parent. So what is essential is that you're doing your best and you are giving your presence, and your love is what matters most for your child. Okay, so let's dive into the newborn period. So this, when you have your baby, usually what they love to do, they like to sleep. So they sleep very long hours throughout the day. They need that sleep, and then they as well like feed a lot during the day. So this is the time as well that we start like developing that sensory bonding with our kids, with our babies, and we want to like emphasize like that bonding and attachment. It develops, and it's a journey between the caregiver and the baby. And remember that the loving caregiver who responds to the baby's needs is the most like important person to the baby's life, and most important teacher as well. So these are like the four things that I want to like emphasize that you do to help that bonding moment. So skin to skin contact, responsive feeding, talking and singing, having that gentle touch and massage with your baby. I'm gonna like dive in more to that on the next slides. So skin to skin, why is that like important? Because it stabilizes like the vital signs of your baby, the breathing, the heart rate. It's very calming to both, actually, to baby and the caregiver. It promotes bonding, and it as well like secretes that calming like hormone, good mood hormone, so oxytocin release, which as well like helps with the breastfeeding success and milk production. So a lot of benefits there. So skin to skin, it reduces crying and stress for actually for both baby and the caregiver and the mom. And it's not just like a mom's job. So definitely it's a teamwork. So both parents can do skin to skin. And next, we gotta like respond to the babies as well, like cues, do responsive feeding. So we responsive feeding means that we don't like base it like too much like around like the clock or the time, but based on like what the baby tells us. So their cues. So they have like hunger cues, like rooting. If we touch their face, they look towards that side. They usually have like a lot of like putting their hands to their mouth. Lip smacking is a hunger cue, and like when they start like fussing, that's as well like a cue that they may be like hungry. So offering milk and feeding when baby shows these early hunger signs, sets the pace as well for the baby's feeding. So and as well like being as well like in tune to what the baby's needs when they tell us like as well their fullness cues, then that's the time to like stop as well. So fullness cues may entail like them turning away, slowing the sucking, and then more relaxed hands and no longer interested with the feed. So this early on, developing that responsive feeding, it builds trust, it supports bonding, it helps regulate appetite too. And then a lot of talking and singing to your newborn. This early on builds language and communication skills from birth. It strengthens building an emotional connection. It helps baby learn the rhythm and social interaction, and it's very good for their brain development through the sounds. It's very as well like calming to hear the familiar voice, like the familiar voice of mom and dad and the caregiver. So how to do it, you can like do it like at any time while you're doing the daily routines in the diaper changes, like talking to the baby and what you're doing, singing the simple songs and lullabies. And when you do that, you smile to your baby, make that contact, and you can like as well exaggerate your voice and your tone. Okay. And then this is just a summary of that talking and singing to your newborn, because your voice is your baby's favorite sound. So, and then we want to like talk like more of the touch, because touch is healing. We want to like give massage to our newborn. It as well like builds trust and emotional security between the parent and the baby. It promotes that healthy sensory development and brain development, and as well as I told you earlier, it makes our regulates the heart rate, the breathing, and the sleep. It reduces stress hormones. It supports calm behavior and encourages bonding and attachments. And so that has a lot of benefits there. So, so just a summary, lots of skin to skin, lots of like responding to baby's needs. And then we may have like some questions here, like that we like observe for babies. Sometimes there are like some newborn behaviors like sneezing, hiccups, and startle reflex. So these are normal newborn behaviors. And as well like during the first few days, we can expect sometimes there's like some irregularities with like sleep patterns for a newborn and the feeding. Don't worry, that will like be with routines that will be like as well like ironed out. What is important is just like continue on like doing all those like responding to the needs and basing on the cues for the babies. As well, with regards to like the umbilical cord care, it's just like to keep that area clean and dry, avoiding use of any like alcohol wipes or anything on the area. With regards to newborn bathing, we do that after the umbilical cord falls off, and it umbilical cord falls off expected around like after like 2 to 3 weeks. And then once that falls off, then bathing can happen like and not like daily. You can like do it 2 to 3 times per week is enough, because we don't want to dry the baby's skin as well. Okay, so what do we expect over as well, like with regards of babies elimination? So we want to make sure that the baby is well hydrated, and one way to determine that is by the number of like wet diapers. So what to expect during the first few days, we should have based on the baby's age. Have the same amount of wet diapers. So if baby is 1 day old, at least baby will get one wet diaper and so forth onwards until day 5. So day 5 onward, we want our baby to get like at least 6+ wet diapers every time, and that is like a good sign that baby's kidneys are working well and that baby is getting enough like of the nutrition and the hydration as well. Like with the poopies, in the first days, we within 24 hours we want to make sure that the baby has a bowel movement, and the first few days the baby passes what we call as meconium, which is the thick black sticky stool, and it is passed like 2 to 3 times a day until it clears out. And then after that, around day 3 to 5, we have like some color in our stool, either like greenish brown or yellow. And that is our transition stool. So and then afterwards, the bowel movement like varies per baby. And what is a highlight importance is that the stools are soft and that baby is comfortable. Sometimes depending on what the baby gets for feed, which Dr. Berg will as well like talk more about later, as well like the response with like as well what the baby will get for their stool like. So now I want to talk about the vitamin D. So vitamin D supplementation is recommended that babies who are getting some breast milk gets that vitamin D supplementation as well, because the breast milk is low on that vitamin D, and vitamin D is very important for healthy bone growth for babies. It prevents their bones to be like weak bones, to be soft. So that prevents rickets as well. It's very important for immune function. So we want that supplementation until how about like formula fed babies, so until the baby gets at least 32 ounces per day of the formula, they are not getting like enough vitamin D, so we still like do recommend that vitamin D supplementation. So, yeah, this is just like a recap on how to prevent like jaundice. I know like during the first week as well, that is like a concern. Like we closely monitor and make sure that our baby is not jaundice. So jaundice is the yellowing of the skin and the sclerosis of the eye. So these are like some measures to make sure that there's not like a buildup of that substance that cause jaundice. So frequent feeding that helps pass the bilirubin, that is substance causes the jaundice in the stool and in the peeing. So having that early breastfeeding support ensures that baby gets good intake and baby gets well hydrated. So that is like preventing to develop as well that jaundice. So that's why it's very important for to bring these babies in for that first 3 to 5 days after birth, because that is usually like the usual like crucial time that there is like just a high buildup sometimes happens around that age. And so we can like monitor, we have like get through our machine and determine the levels of the bilirubin. So, and sometimes with higher levels, some babies may need to get like phototherapy. Okay, so do have like a lot of questions sometimes of like how to clothe our babies. So the rule of thumb is that we get one more layer, give it to the babies, and what we prefer to dress ourselves for the weather. We want to make sure that babies are as well like not overheated. So when we are indoors, we can like keep their head uncovered, and then we want to make sure as well that they are wearing like safe sleep clothing. We don't want like to have like a lot of not have like loose blankets. That's not safe. We don't like hats when they're sleeping, or like having them wear like bulky like clothing. So as well, like we don't want them to be like overheated like when they are asleep. So they can use like wearable like sleep sacks. Okay, so here is like just a slide guide of when to bring your newborn for evaluation. So any fevers, and fever is 100.4 Fahrenheit, and any baby under 3 months needs evaluation. And then as well, like any signs at all of like poor feeding, dehydration, less wet diapers than expected, and jaundice in the first like 24 hours or even like the first week, breathing difficulties, persistent vomiting, unusual rash, or any symptoms at all. Trust your instincts, and it is anytime your instincts say something isn't right, just get your babies evaluated. So now let's move on to like car seat safety. So it's just like a quick like reminders. So never prop bottles or feed baby in the car seat. And as well, like car seats are not safe sleep spaces outside the car. So we would just like want to have the use of car seat for travel, but then keeping the babies out and have like a safe space for them to sleep, and not to leave them in car seats to sleep for a long prolonged period of time. As well, we want to limit the time in the car seats to avoid airway compression. So yeah, we want to like make sure that baby is always like safe. So after that, I want to like dive into talk about the growth and development of our baby. So as you can see here, this is just a summary slide and showing you at a glance that babies are very busy. They are very busy with growing and developing. And as you can see, like from like some from being just 3 to 0.5 kilos, their birth weight triples by 1 year of age, and they double their length in 1 year as well, and their brains as well is growing very fast, and the head circumference increases by like 12 centimeters by 1 year. So, and then we want to like make sure as well that babies are meeting their milestones, and what do we expect like as they are like growing. So, when babies are around like between like the first few months, they are starting to develop their like neck muscles there. So that's why early on we want to do like tummy time. So they do like lift their head briefly, and then they begin to track objects too. And then by around 6 to 8 weeks, they start like responding to our smiles, and that is what we call a social smile. They as well like startle to loud sounds, recognize the caregiver's voice, and makes sounds of their own, some cooing. Around 3 to 4 months, they are growing stronger. Their heads are like more steady now, stronger neck control when upright and supported. They can like push up on their arms more. So mini push-ups. So that's as well like develop when they're doing like tummy time. And then they try to reach, bring their hands to the mouth. They laugh and respond to sounds. They giggle, and they are able to follow objects like from one side to the other, so 180 degrees. Around 4 to 6 months, they start rolling over from one side, and then they laugh more, making more sounds. They begin to be more like stable with like their body control when sitting, but with support, and they as well like learn to reach and grasp objects. So by 6 months, they are now rolling both ways, and they are bubbling more consonants. And they may show some signs of being ready for solid foods. And what are these signs? So they are sitting better and well, like with support. They have good head control and they show interest in food. So this is just like a highlight that play is the primary language of learning, and so do a lot of like playing with your baby. So and this develops like all their like process like a tummy time play and musical play, and just like a lot of like sensory as well. So yeah, a lot of playtime is very important. This as well like highlights that over the course from newborn up to like 6 months that tummy time is vital. So early on we want to start tummy time right away. Early on in newborn we can do it on parents chest, and that is as well like helping that skin to skin, and then moving forward to the firm surface, and then it as well like prepares them to their like motor skills and pre-crawling phase. So and then moving forward when they are like between 7 to 9 months, they can now like sit on their own without any support. Some babies can learn to crawl and scoot. They respond better with their name. They start bubbling more consonants, and as well like they start to like now know and be anxious of like unfamiliar faces. Between 10 to 12 months, babies learn to pull to stand. They take their first steps. They are now able to say simple words like mama and dada. Yeah, so it's very important to start like child proofing around that time. Okay. And then this is just like a summary of how that first year milestone looks like. So from reflexes to first steps, and then from coos to their first words, from reflexes to like problem solving and having like object permanence, and knowing familiar faces, from gaze to like more secure attachment by 9 months of age. So yeah, I think yes. And then this one is a very important slide because that is like why we want our babies to come in for their like well visits, so we can like survey and as well like monitor how they are developing. And this slide here is just like to what the red flags, what needs to be evaluated when some milestones are not met, and by what age. So we will be concerned if there's no social smile by 3 months, there's no bubbling by 9 months, there's no pointing or gestures by 12 months, and any at all like age that they lost like acquired skills, we will be concerned as well, like no response to name. Poor like head control, has a lot of like head lag by 4 months. So and we have, that's why we have like this surveillance. We want them to get like that early intervention so they can have like as early services can lead to best outcomes. Okay. um, so for the next topics and care, I would like to pass the baton to our beautiful you pediatrician in Arlington. We have Dr. Carly Berg.
Hello. So, just to review, we heard about the incredible newborn period. And we heard about all the amazing things that baby learns to do in the first year. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about feeding. So, we included just the first slide is kind of some important milestones that happen over the first year of life. So, just like Dr. Antig talked about in the newborn period, babies are feeding really frequently. And again, they're just doing human milk or formula every 2 to 3 hours approximately, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. Around 4 to 6 months, they're ready to start solids. And then in that second half of the year, between 6 and 12 months, they're increasing the amount of foods that they're eating and the variety. And we're focusing on iron-rich foods and just introducing all the different kinds of foods that they'll eat. We'll talk a little bit more about food safety in a couple of slides. We also really wanted to highlight a couple of very important things to remember in the first year of life, and that's that babies shouldn't get honey, cow's milk, added sugar like juice, and we should certainly be careful about choking hazards. And so what kind of things do we do in the newborn period and in those, especially for 6 months? So we talk about formula or breast milk. Now, we want to really highlight that fed is best. So what works for babies and what works for mom or the parent is what works overall. And so that being said, ideally breast milk, especially exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is the best thing for baby if it's possible. There's a lot of benefits for mom and for baby when you're breastfeeding. We could spend a whole talk just on breastfeeding, but we included some really important benefits here, both for mom and baby. So you get great immune protection for newborns whose immune systems are just growing. It's optimal nutrition. It helps with brain development, and both for mom and baby, it's really important for attachment. For mom, it actually reduces cancer risk, both breast and uterine cancer. Helps with uterine recovery, and it's often more convenient than formula. So then just some very quick breastfeeding basics to help start you off with success. The most important thing is, just like Dr. Antig talked about, skin to skin and early breastfeeding is the best thing you can do to help promote adequate supply and long-term breastfeeding. So sometimes we'll talk about the golden hour of breastfeeding. So that's really that first hour of baby's life. That's the most important time to get skin to skin and to try latching. That really sets up the body to produce milk really for that first couple of years of life. Breastfed babies feed very frequently, so that's why we talk about responsive feeding. Often we'll say every 2 to 3 hours, but sometimes they're feeding 10 to 12 times a day, especially in those first couple days. And it's always important to remember that baby's stomach, when they're first born, is the size of a marble. They do not need a lot of milk, and that's to allow for the first couple days where mom's milk supply is coming in too. So we just produce a small amount of colostrum, which is this really protein and nutrient-rich milk in the first couple days, and then over the first 3 to 5 days, your milk supply will slowly increase, and that's normal and to be expected. So we'll go through some formula feeding basics as well. It can be very overwhelming to try and pick a formula. There are hundreds and hundreds of different formulas out there. The most important thing to remember is to pick an infant formula. In the US, to be designated as an infant formula, you have to meet really strict nutritional standards. And so if it's an infant formula, that typically means that the nutrition is complete for newborn. We always want you to choose an iron fortified formula and talk to your pediatrician if you have other questions about the specific formula to use. Some important safety things is making sure you sterilize the bottles and nipples before you use them, and wash them with hot soapy water after every feed. Really important to follow the specific mixing ratio on the formula label. Never dilute or concentrate the formula unless instructed by a pediatrician. And feed every 2 to 3 hours, typically with formula. Often they don't need to feed more than every 2 hours, and expect those volumes to increase as they grow. We also review some safe handling here, both for formula and breast milk. So important things about handling bottles and formula is that to warm up the milk, you don't want to microwave it. That can create really hot, almost scalding spots in the milk. So warm it up in a bowl of warm water. Test the temperature on your wrist before feeding, and use the milk within an hour. We included some slides on safe storage of both human milk and formula. So we can quickly go through them here. But these are mainly reference slides. So the most important thing is we keep the milk at room temperature. If it's freshly pumped, up to 4 hours. It'll stay in the fridge for up to 4 days, and then you can put it in the freezer, a deep freeze. If you're thawing milk, it can be used in the fridge within 24 hours, but use it within 1 to 2 hours if you're leaving at room temperature. Very similar storage for formula. Most importantly, never freeze prepared formula. And then we're going to go into the details about what you might expect for babies as they grow, as far as feeding volumes. So just like we talked about, in those first couple weeks, first couple days, babies take very small volumes, and then they'll start to increase their volumes to about an ounce per feed in the first couple days of life. Typically by 2 weeks, they're taking 2 ounces every 2 to 3 hours. At a month, they increase to 2 to 4 ounces, and they might start to go a little bit longer stretches between feeds, sometimes up to every 3 to 4 hours. By 2 to 3 months, they're doing 4 to 5 ounces. And you might start to see some growth spurts where they're really starting to eat more. And you can let baby guide you as far as increasing the volumes. So if they start to go less time between feeds, or if they're still acting hungry after they finish a bottle, offer them a little bit more. And then between 4 to 5 months, sometimes babies are sleeping longer at night. They're still feeding every 3 to 4 hours during the day. They're taking 5 to 6 ounces. And then between 4 and 6 months is when we start solids. Now, at this point, milk is still the main nutrition, but they'll start to do solid foods a few times a day. And between 9 to 12 months, typically the volume of feeds stays about the same as when they're 6 months old because they're increasing their solid food intake. They might do less feeds of milk a day, somewhere between 3 to 4 feeds a day. And so this is kind of our general guide about that birth to 6 months, now that you've heard about those feeding volumes. And remember, until 4 to 6 months, no solid foods and no water until babies are 6 months old. And now here's the fun. So around 4 to 6 months is when babies are ready for solids. Just like Dr. Antig talked about, that's when they start to get strong enough to be able to hold their head up and sit with a little bit of support. And so those are the big things we're looking for to show that they're ready for solid foods. So we want them to be really strong. We want them to have good head control so they can turn their head, tell you that they're full, move their head away without falling over or bobbling. And they should be interested in food. That's often the first thing that happens, that they're opening their mouth for every spoon that they see you bring towards your own mouth. That's a good sign that they're starting to be ready. You'll hear a lot about different ways to start solid foods. We generally say start with soft foods. We want the similar textures. You can either do pureed foods like Gerber or other foods that you buy in the store, or you can make your own. Generally, we say start with one new food every 3 to 5 days. And that's to know if they have a reaction to something that they reacted to. Especially for babies who are primarily human milk fed, we want to start with iron-rich foods. Breast milk has iron in it, but a little bit less than iron fortified formula. And so especially for those babies, we say start with the iron-rich foods. Baby cereals are fortified with iron. Even an ounce of baby cereal, either rice or oat, every day gives babies almost the amount of iron that they need for the whole day. And then a big common concern and a big question from families is often about common allergens. So in the past, 10, 20 years ago, we used to say wait on those foods that are common allergens like peanut and egg. But now, after lots of studies, we've shown that early and consistent introduction to those foods actually might lower the risk of those food allergies. So those common allergens, especially egg and peanut, are not foods you have to avoid as long as you make sure that the texture is safe. And when we say early, we typically mean around 6 months, but ideally at least before a year. Consistent means 2 to 3 times a day. The foods that we definitely still need to be careful about are the choking hazards. So we have a slide about that in a little bit. And so over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, now that we've started those solid foods, babies will continue to increase the amount that they want. Sometimes families will ask about the specific amount that babies need to take. And I say let them guide you. So they'll tell you when they're full. Typically around 6 months, we're giving foods 2, maybe 3 times a day. But again, it's not their main source of nutrition. And then closer to 9 months, babies are starting to eat just like we eat, 3 meals a day and a couple snacks. And so you might start to see that they actually decrease the amount of formula or breast milk that they're consuming. Other important things about feeding in this that 6 to 12 month period is that we want them to start to self-feed. So just like you heard with all of our amazing developmental milestones, babies start to use their hands intentionally and put things in their mouth. And so starting with solid foods, you can let them play with the food and put it in their mouth. Closer to 9 months old, they might even start to really intentionally reach and grab and feed themselves. We also like to start to practice open cups or sippy cups, starting with water, and you can even try milk and formula or human milk in a sippy cup as well. That's to get them ready for their first birthday when they get rid of the bottles, hopefully. And then again, some important safety things. So we keep saying this, but no honey before a year, no juice. And then we also have a couple other food safety information topics on this next slide. So this is a nice reference for choking hazards and food safety. So these are just some nice reminders about things that are definitely safe and things that we really want to avoid for our babies, especially before a year. So the soft cooked foods, the soft pastas, thin nut butters, shredded cheese, these are nice, safe foods for baby. What we want to avoid, even when they're closer to a year old, are whole, round foods that can get caught in their airway. So things like grapes and hot dogs and carrots. And certainly no popcorn or hard candy until they're much, much older, closer to 4. And then now we get to go on to infant sleep. So these are a few slides just about some things you might expect from baby sleep over the first year. Newborns, like we heard, sleep a lot. They sleep more than they are awake, 14 to 17 hours a day. Around 3 to 6 months, you'll start to see those longer nighttime stretches. And a lot of babies will start to sleep through the night between 4 and 6 months. Between 6 and 12 months, they're starting to take more consolidated naps. So we have a really nice graph here going through what you might expect over the first year of life with both how long babies sleep and the amount of naps. So again, starting in the newborn period, we have the 16 to 17 hours. And then by the time they turn a year, they're doing 12 to 14 hours of sleep overnight, and then a few naps a day. Some things that you can do to help babies have healthy sleep is start to think about routines for sleep. So in that newborn period, let them guide you. You can't help a baby sleep in a different way than they're already sleeping. But around 3 to 4 months, you can start to think about some gentle routines for baby. So incorporating play, reading to baby, talking to baby, maybe even after you feed them, to start to show them other ways that they can fall asleep. And then we really wanted to make sure we highlighted safe sleep. So especially in this first year of life, safe sleep is very important. We've got a visual guide here. So we talk about back to sleep. So babies should always sleep in their own space alone. So that means no other people in the bed with them, no bumpers, toys, blankets, pillows, anything in the crib or bassinet. They should sleep on their back, not on their side or their tummy. And they should be in a crib or bassinet. So that's a safety approved sleeping area. That means that there's a firm flat surface under them and a fitted sheet. So nothing else. Sometimes folks will ask about things like bouncers or pillows or things that elevate baby's head. And those are not for safe sleep because baby can roll. And while we're talking about safety, we didn't have time to do a lot about baby proofing, but we wanted to include a really nice slide as a reference for things to think about when you're baby proofing the house to keep everybody safe. And so we always say start this early, ideally around 4 to 5 months before baby starts moving. So we want to catch them before they start to get into trouble. You want to think about all the things that baby might get into, both in the kitchen, in the living room, and the bathroom. And sometimes a good thing to think about is getting down to their level and really looking and seeing what they might find. Everything's going to go into the mouth, they're going to pull up, and they're going to pull everything down. So make sure everything is safe away from baby or fixed to the wall. And then we're getting to the end, so we get to talk about when we get to meet baby. So we went through just a general schedule about what you might expect in the first year of life as far as pediatrician visits. So you'll see your pediatrician very frequently, and especially the first couple months of life. You'll have that newborn visit. Often we'll have another visit at around 2 weeks to make sure babies are continuing to grow, somewhere between 2 weeks and a month. Then we have a 2-month, 4-month, 6-month, 9-month, and 12-month visit. And at these visits, we're checking growth, we're making sure baby's developing well, and we're talking about vaccines. And so that brings us to this slide about our vaccines. So this is the general vaccine schedule. So you can see here, we do a hepatitis B vaccine at birth. And if baby's born during the viral season, they now can get the RSV protective antibody in the birth period. At 2, 4, and 6 months, they'll get very similar vaccines. And this is really to help babies get protected as quickly as possible. So it'll be diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough, polio, Haemophilus influenza, rotavirus, another dose of hepatitis B. And then at 12 months, they'll get measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and hepatitis A. During the viral season, after 6 months, babies can also get the flu shot and the COVID vaccine. And then some practical parenting tips. So These are just a few really important things to remember. For parenting. Parenting is a journey. So these are ways you can help babies stay in a nurturing, safe, and stimulating environment. The first one is establish routines, both for yourself and for baby. Do lots of tummy time and play with your baby. Talk, sing, read even earlier than you think that baby's ready. Those are the best things you can do to help promote development and a secure relationship. Create a safe home environment and trust your instincts. Mom and dad, the caregivers know best. So if you're worried, you're probably good to reach out and talk to us and ask questions. That's what we're here for. Those well visits are times to check in on growth and development and talk about vaccines, but it's also to make sure that all your questions are answered. We love when parents come with questions. And then we already talked about some reasons to call the pediatrician. We included a couple other sites here about just to remind you guys. So fevers, dehydration, breathing, developmental concerns. There are some common illnesses that you'll see in the first year that you don't always have to worry about, but things that it's good to call us to talk about. So like colds and ear infections and diaper rash. And then just a nice, this is just a nice picture slide about all these important things to call your pediatrician about. We included a slide at the end about teething and oral health because this is another common question that will come up. We don't have to go through this in detail, but it's here for your reference. So just about things you might expect. Typically, teeth come in about 6 months, but there's a huge variation. I would say that's the most important thing to remember. Parents are always worried if the teeth are going to come in on time, and we just need one tooth by a year. So don't worry if they have lots of teething signs and but nothing comes in until a year. And we included some ways to help with teething and some things to be careful with. So we want to make sure we don't use things like teething or Aura gel, so that's not safe for baby. And we think about doing our first dental visit at a year, and we do our good dental health starting from the first tooth eruption. So you can start brushing teeth at the minute those teeth come in. And then we just have a few slides with some references and additional resources. So there's a lot of resources for baby, but these are just a couple safety resources. So an important phone number to always have on hand is a poison helpline. That's a 24/7 line if there's any ever any concerns about ingestion. Car seat safety is really tricky. Sometimes it's hard to know the right car seat and how to place the car seat. So we included some websites about car seat safety. And then there are a lot of resources to help you in that first year of life, but we really like healthychildren.org. That's the AAP's parent education website. There is just an amazing amount of articles about all the things that you can think of to take care of baby. And so some closing thoughts that we wanted to end with. One, you're doing great. Every baby grows at their own pace, and there are so many ways to be a good parent. Lots of right ways. Trust your gut, celebrate the small wins, and ask us for help if you need it. Thank you. And then we're ready for questions if there are any.
Yeah, Max, how to see that question.
Oh, I think it's up here too.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can be safely in a car seat. Okay. Like if you're driving on vacation. Yeah. Okay. I would say at least like 2 hours take breaks. Yeah. 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 I would say like we should like take breaks like 2 hours if you are like on long drives, at least like 1.5 to 2 hours take breaks, just to make sure that we reposition baby and baby is not like overheated, and as well like see if baby needs. But if like prolonged drives, it's best to have like someone as well like sit beside baby.
Thank you guys so much. That was a wonderful presentation. Really appreciate you doing this tonight.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Sure. And as everyone is logging off, I did just want to leave a couple of quick notes and we can see if any other questions come in that time. But I did just want to share that we do offer a completely free service at Stilly Valley Health Connections. We have two child passenger safety technicians who do offer appointments to check your car seats. So if anyone ever has, questions that they would like to send directly to us, you can find that information on our website, and that's at stillyvalleyhealth.org. And I also wanted to share that there will be a brief 6-question survey at the end of this. If you guys have any ideas for future classes, we'd love to hear them. So please feel free to put those in that survey. And we appreciate you all being here. And thank you again to these two amazing doctors for spending time on a Thursday night to give us this education. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Good
All
night.
right. Have a nice night, everyone. Bye.
Okay.